Representative Nicole Malliotakis held a press briefing on Thursday to discuss inflation in America. The New York Republican blamed the Biden administration for inflation. Malliotakis said that the Biden administration's stance on domestic oil production is what is causing the rising prices. Malliotakis condemned the Biden administration for, quote, begging OPEC to produce more oil when the United States could be producing more. Malliotakis closed by saying, quote, it seems they're not opposed to oil, they're just opposed to clean American oil.
I want to talk about, just briefly, about what the American families are facing right now. Right now, food prices are up over 13%. Gas prices have shot up more than 60% under this administration. And if you look at the numbers prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that number had gone up 50%. So before any type of invasion occurred between Russia and into Ukraine, we saw the ramifications of certain policies that were put in place. In his first 19 months in office, the president only leased a very small fraction of land for domestic energy production. No other president since Nixon has leased out fewer than 4.4 million acres at this stage in their term. In fact, showing bipartisan support for domestic production, both President Trump and President Obama had approved 10 times as many leases at the same point in their presidencies. Now, as a result of the lack of domestic production we're seeing from this administration, as a result of deterring investments in the infrastructure to transport oil and natural gas, as a result of the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline, which will be almost finished right now, and as a result of decisions to stop leasing, permitting for domestic production, we are seeing the impact of inflation soar on goods being transported and food being transported. Look, food, first of all, think about what you need energy for, right? Every aspect of your life, right? And we take it for granted. Sometimes we put on the lights in our house, we put the heat on in our home, we don't really think about where it actually comes from. But it's a utility that every single American needs, including every business. Stores like this, Olive Tree Marketplace, they rely on refrigeration for their goods. They rely on heat and AC to keep their produce fresh. They rely on electricity to keep the lights on. But they also understand that food is transported on rail, which requires many cases diesel. It's transported by trucks, diesel as well, or natural gas. But the bottom line is we need energy, and we need to have an abundant resource of energy because it affects every single aspect of our life. Manufacturers who are producing these goods, these food products, they require energy. The transportation of the goods requires energy, and now here at the store. So when we see this type of rise in energy costs due to policies that were put in place, again, this was created, these were policies, decisions that were made by the current administration, we see the prices impact everyday families because those costs of producing the goods and manufacturing the goods and transporting the goods are now passed on to the consumer. So I would like to invite David, who's the owner of the store, to just give us an idea of what he's going through as a small business owner who owns a food market, and what are some of the things that he's seeing on a regular daily basis with some of the providers that he works with.
Thank you, Nicole. You basically touched base on everything that I wanted to say. So, but the energy crisis is affecting all the supermarkets, not just me. The prices of electricity has more than doubled. Gas, again, like what Nicole said, the diesel has increased. A lot of truck drivers, I have a cousin that's a truck driver that doesn't take loads out anymore because it's not profitable for him to make deliveries. So it becomes a supply and demand issue also. Rates of deliveries has increased. There's gas, the surcharge for gas deliveries has increased. So it's making my profit margin very low, to the point where it's very hard to continue doing business like this. So all the things that Nicole said, she was on the money with, and I hope something happens, because right now it's not getting any better. Things are getting worse. They can mask the issues and claim that things are getting better, but it's really not. It's very hard to get inventory in your stores and to keep the prices low. Right now, a head of lettuce is $5. Eggs is through the roof, and it's it's very, very hard. When you're trying to keep your prices down, and you have customers that's looking at you like you're price gouging it, and that's not the case. So, but most of the things that Nicole said, I was gonna, say the same, but that's what it is. Right. Yes. So when I get a delivery, the delivery fee has increased. And on top of that delivery fee, there's a surcharge for gas on top of that. So we're getting charged multiple fees just to get the inflated prices into our doors and on our shelves. So it becomes like a double jeopardy, and it's very, very difficult to operate a business like this. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank David for sharing his real life. And yesterday we were talking about these issues, and he was saying how he doesn't want to raise prices on his consumers. They're loyal customers that come to his store. Many are elderly. He understands the real life impact, and so he's eating a lot of the costs himself to try to hold down the line for his consumers, which I think is an honorable thing to do as a small business owner in our community. We appreciate that. But the reality is that we're going to lose mom and pop shops like his if this continues. There's only so much cost that they can eat without passing it on to the consumer if they're going to survive in business. And we're seeing that same thought from restaurant owners in our community who have already been crushed by COVID, and now they're finally reopening, and now they're going to be crushed with these inflationary costs onto foods and transporting of goods. So I'd like to bring up a couple of our consumers here, or people in the community who are shoppers, to talk a little bit about their experience. But David talks about something very important also. He said artificially trying to keep the gas prices low, which the administration has tried to do. Instead of ramping up domestic production, right, what we have seen is a raiding of our strategic reserves. And that is so incredibly scary, the fact that we're in a 4-decade low right now in our strategic petroleum reserves. Those are meant for emergencies, for natural disasters. They're meant for hurricanes, if a hurricane were to hit and our refineries were to keep prices low as we're seeing today. And it could be completely avoided, again, by ramping up domestic production, lifting the bans on the permitting and the hindering of the permitting and the oil leases that we're seeing currently, and making sure that we do invest in the necessary pipeline infrastructure that will then encourage companies to also expand their operations and ramp up domestic production. So just to hear about some of the real life impacts, which we're all feeling each and every day. My mom is probably my most vocal constituent. My senior citizen mother, when she goes and buys eggs or milk, she always calls me or tells me, like, will you believe that a dozen eggs are $4.99 or whatever the price may be on that particular day. But it's hitting everyone, and it's becoming at a tremendous cost. And it's come to a point where we're seeing families going to food pantries. There's been a incredible, sad increase in people who are now relying on food pantries, families with children, because they can't afford in the food prices. I'd like to invite up Kathy Romanelli, who is the president of the Mariners Harbor Civic Association, who would like to share a few thoughts about what her community is feeling. Thank you all. I really appreciate bringing this to everyone's attention, because people don't realize the world revolves around petroleum. And Biden came in on day one and said, I'm going to shut down the energy industry. And little by little, in 19 months, he has. And now we see how it affects the families in our community that go out to shop. When they see $7.99 for 18 eggs, when they see milk $5 a gallon, it's horrendous. And all of this can be stopped by our president, who just refuses. And the price of gas is over $4 a gallon again. It's not going down. He's using all our reserves. It's not going down. There's a 25-day supply of diesel fuel. People don't realize what's going to happen when that 25-day supply is gone. Trucks are not going to be able to deliver food. Railroads will shut down. What's going to happen? We need people like Nicole. We need people to think about these things and help our families. Help them realize this is all brought on by Biden. He could stop it with the stroke of a pen. Why isn't he getting the picture? What's wrong? And do people have to keep going to food pantries to support their families? It's really horrendous. But thank you, Nicole, for bringing this to everyone's attention. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you have any other members who would like to say a few things?
As a gardener, I like to plant my tomatoes in the spring like many of you do. And you realize then that this petroleum-based economy, which is what we have, is from the bottom up. The fertilizer that you buy at Lowe's or Home Depot to plant those tomatoes is way up in price. And it's because everything from the rubber in the soles of your shoes to the zipper on your sweatshirt, everything is petroleum-based. And the fact that we have a petroleum-based economy and the delusional president, who's honestly, I call this the Jill Biden presidency, because obviously she has the most sway over the old man, and she's telling him what her naive and half-assed liberal attitudes are about all of these things. So much of this stuff is, I truly believe, stems from the fact that you have someone who's incompetent at the top, and he's being steered by people who just have idealistic but unrealistic attitudes toward everything, and they consider the petroleum industry, which is like the best thing God gave America, to be the enemy of the people, when in fact it's probably the best benefit that the U.S. has ever seen, and has benefited more people across the board for the longest period of time, and has really sustained the highest standard of living in the world for a very long time. So, thank you, and didn't mean to spout.
That's all right. And on this point, on the point of energy diversification, because I think it's very important. I support clean energy. I support energy diversification, but just not to the exclusion of our traditional sources, like oil and gas. These are things that we need to survive, as we've discussed here today. And so, in fact, yesterday we had a very great announcement for Staten Island. We were able to secure $48 million in federal funding to support wind turbines that will be off the shore of New York. And those jobs, those assembly jobs and those warehousing jobs, are going to be right here on Staten Island. That is huge in terms of job creation and energy diversification. But again, it cannot be to the exclusion. We need all these energy sources, including our traditional ones. Would we like to talk about how this is affecting senior citizens? Okay, it's okay. You don't have to. We have our friends from the Staten Island Independent Living here, who they do a wonderful job representing our senior citizens community, and really in many ways they are the most impacted by what is happening right now. They are living on very fixed incomes. That's why we need to preserve their Social Security. I've actually called for us looking at lifting the cap on the taxation, so that way they have more tax-exempt Social Security earnings, which I think will help provide some relief for them. But we have to think about our seniors and those who are struggling with the rising cost of living during this time, and that's what we want to help as well. So, with that said, no questions, it seems. Well, thank you all for coming, and I appreciate it. And let's make America energy independence again. Because it's important, not just for the cost of living issues that I mentioned here today, but for our own national security. We should not be going
State as well.
We should not be going to our adversaries. There's no reason why the president should be begging OPEC when we can produce it right here. There's no reason why we need to beg adversaries like Iran and socialist dictatorships like Venezuela when we can be producing it right here. And by the way, much cleaner. So it seems that they're not opposed to oil. They're just opposed to clean American oil. So thank you very much, and continue to advocate